Something is going on. Some of us see it, some of us feel it. It's time to expand your thinking. You will need to reset everything you thought you knew about the world, about the people you trust, about history, about yourself. Let me tell you a story. For a very long time, our world has been under the growing influence of a vast transgenerational criminal mafia that was able to rise up to the highest levels of power. We didn't know because they talked and acted just like you and me. We thought we could recognize true criminals by their words and actions, but were deceived by their sophisticated speech, wealth, education, beauty, and power. Through a system of threats, blackmail, and bribery, they would come to occupy the highest levels of power in government, corporations, and education. You may know them as the deep state, or cabal. Most dangerously of all, they achieve almost total influence over the media, their primary means of controlling the good people of the world who were just trying to get on with living. They used this power to slowly convince us that we were the problem, that we were a threat to each other. They used race, gender, and religion to set us apart, and rewrote history to validate these false claims. They funded both sides of wars just to crush our potential to prosper and succeed as a peace-loving and creative force of good for the world. Now, with their firm grasp on the media, we drank in their entertainment and lies as they began their final phase, the total takedown of America. We were the brightest remaining beacon of freedom and humanity's last hope. They knew that if they could take America, the rest of the world would follow. They cut deals that led us to hand over total control of the money system to a private central bank, the Federal Reserve. This made it possible to influence Washington, D.C., and most of our presidents since then were beholden to the criminals in one way or another. Things took a really bad turn when they concentrated vast power into the hands of the many civilian intelligence agencies throughout the world. They said they were there to protect us. Instead, these agencies were catastrophically weaponized to boost drug and human trafficking cartels, assassinate political opponents, undermine the military, and change regimes of foreign governments who did not want to adopt the centralized system of money control. You might think they would choose simply to remain in the shadows running their criminal activities while we carried on with our lives. But as long as there was freedom for the people to prosper, the cabal were always at risk of being discovered and shut down. There was no way to continue without a plan to eliminate all threats to their survival, even if it meant imposing a single world government under their jurisdiction, where no national identity, police force, or military could stop them. They called it globalism. Exploiting our emotions and our instincts of compassion, they found a way to justify dismantling cultures, borders, and national identity under the guise of social justice, creating false narratives of racism, colonialism, and capitalism to destabilize and ultimately collapse societies so they were no longer secure enough to reject this dark plan for the world. Where there was no history to distort, they would use wars to force a catastrophic mass migration of peoples across borders to destabilize and weaken cultural identity. When we didn't accept this, they called us intolerant and shamed us into silence. By 2008, America was in advanced stages of economic decline, with disastrous trade deals leading to widespread loss of jobs and a devastating financial crisis. The cabal had now absorbed another extensive criminal empire that was aligned with a twisted and radical form of Islam. Realizing the competition could threaten their goals, they decided to cooperate and agree to mutual terms. Now a hostile foreign enemy was able to insert a subordinate into the U.S. political system who would become the president. Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal funded Obama's Harvard education and took power by proxy, picking his entire cabinet while buying vast quantities of control in our largest media companies. The Western faction of the cabal was different. It was another kind of sick altogether. A dark and deeply sinister death cult with a strong reliance on symbolism and numerology, with levels of cruelty unimaginable to all right-thinking people. The reach and scale the secret society had achieved would have sent destabilizing shockwaves across the world were it ever to be publicly exposed. They were highly skilled at living just below the surface as they worked their way into the United States presidency. With both factions of the global mafia now in control, are you ready to hear what they had planned? Make sure you're sitting down. They installed rogue operators in government. They opened back doors to leak highly classified military intel and top-secret special access programs. They cut military funding and weakened the command of generals with irrational new rules of engagement. They worked to dismantle NASA and end our supremacy in space. They infiltrated and exposed defensive military intelligence programs that reduced our ability to detect foreign and domestic threats. They used our trusted agencies to target and weaken political opponents. They relaxed our borders and enabled passage of millions of illegals and violent criminal gangs. They moved money to fund global terrorism, resulting in groups like ISIS moving to capture vast territories throughout the world. In 2016, the Cabal Alliance had hoped to retain power. If you are not yet chilled to the bone by the picture that is forming about their intentions for us all, let me tell you what was to come next. Through international climate change scams, they would have siphoned trillions of remaining wealth, eliminate the last good guys in government, and withdraw total funding from the US military, handing over the responsibility of our defense to the United Nations. They would revise the Constitution to weaken our ability to fight back, ban the sale of firearms to eliminate our self-defense, insert their people into the Supreme Court, remove the Electoral College system to neuter our voting power, and totally eliminate alternative media to shield them from exposure. They instigated a covert deal to move large quantities of our uranium to their captured states in North Korea and Iran to build up a nuclear arsenal that would threaten the world. For this, they blamed Russia, a growing force of opposition to their ambitions of global control. By casting Putin as an enemy and blaming him for this illegal uranium deal, they had planned a devastating nuclear world war between America and Russia that would have exhausted the last two remaining pillars of freedom for the world, accelerating the horrific endgame that had become inevitable. This cabal miraculously lost power in 2016 when a brave operation, led by a US military alliance and their global partners, were able to return power legitimately over to the light. They had a plan of their very own, one that was many decades in the making. With Donald Trump selected for the role of president, the people of America was slowly awakened to the reality of the world they live in. With so much hidden and lied about in the media channels we had come to trust for our news and entertainment, this alliance of good set into motion a sophisticated strategy of dismantling the vast network of corruption that had almost completely overcome every level of government, industry, and the legal system. They knew they had to follow the laws of the land as they were originally intended, otherwise they themselves would be delegitimized, even though they were just trying to free us from the silent stranglehold of tyranny that we had come to accept as normal. The panicking deep state used any remaining power they had left to try and save themselves. Each day for 2 years was a careful and meticulously planned balancing act between public perception and the job that needed to be done. Moving too fast would shock and scare a sleeping public still living in the prison of the mind that was created for them. But after all this, it appears now that not only are we winning, but we have won. The trajectory of this great storm is now radiantly clear. Now we look forward to a new future, thanks to the brave patriots who risked everything to save our world. This time for good. There is not a person alive who has experienced what a world without this darkness could be like. A world of free energy that was kept from us to force our dependency on their fossil fuel monopolies. Abolishment of income tax that was illegally imposed to pay back interest on loans taken from the cabal banking system. Released cures for our most deadly diseases. Unleashed space technologies to open frontiers we never dreamed possible. New technologies creating millions of jobs and yielding a global human renaissance the likes of which we have never seen. Fellow Americans and citizens of the world, now it is our turn to shine. Wherever we are, we will become the plan when we choose to reject what they call globalism. We recognize the words they use to bend us to their will, and we say no more. It's time to turn off the media, follow your instincts, trust yourself, and be the plan. May God bless America.
Deliverance, Lord. Deliver us from this enemy that has endeavored to handicap us. And Lord, the betrayal that has been so evident in the White House, bring that to an end. I see a president that shall come, and this is not to speak bad about this one. There is a president who will come. And God says he will have absolutely no fear. Absolutely no fear. Will be decisive, make decisions. And then in the middle of the restoration of America, rapidly, because of a source of energy that shall come quickly, and because of medical breakthroughs and because of agreements between nations, specifically China. God said they shall say, we never dreamed this would happen. They said that this in Japan would never happen. But God says, listen to me. As the beginning of the restoration, as it begins, there shall be a woman that shall rise up. A woman that shall be strong in faith, virtuous, beautiful in eyes, and her eyes shall be so beautiful. Her eyes shall be round and big. I have crowned her, says the Lord, as I crowned Esther. And the people shall receive her, for she shall have the oil of gladness for the pain and the mourning that is taking place. And she shall pour out the oil. Is there some oil here, please, Marty? Is there some oil? She shall pour out the oil on this nation. And God says healing shall begin, and then it shall flow rapidly. Schools will be free from potential damage and danger, shootings and murder, drug addiction. Cartels shall be afraid of a woman. A woman anointed by God. A woman set aside. And God says they will say we hated her, but now we love her. For she shall take the oil of healing, and she shall pour it upon the scars of those left and those right, and of the new party that has come forth and emerged, where they shall say Christ will reign, and this we shall not implement at all socialism, where where they have said we will make history without God. No, you will not. No, you will not, says the Lord. For I chose this nation before it was founded. Before anybody came here, I chose this entire nation, all 50 states, every one of them, to send my gospel to the entire earth. Do you think I have changed my mind? Therefore the healing that is necessary for this nation shall come at a time in the middle of the presidency. There shall be a woman that shall come, and God said there shall be oil that shall be poured upon the nation, and they shall suddenly feel the healing, and they shall say, it is well with my soul, it is well with our soul. For the soul of America has been corrupted, the soul of this nation has been corrupted with bitterness and anger, and God said she shall say, no more bitterness, no more anger, no more division, and shall pour the oil that shall come from the Spirit of the Lord himself. If you as a nation believe that, if you want this, lift your voice and shout one more time and say yes. Yes to Esther. Yes to Esther. Yes to Esther. Yes to Esther.
Head of, is she going to be the sovereign head of the state of Canada? And could you explain about that?
Yeah, she has been chosen. I played the video earlier. Romana Didulo. She's the sovereign head of state and commander-in-chief, and the sovereign of the Sovereign Republic of Canada. And she has been chosen by the White House. And if I, yeah. If I go on to here, 1 second. In fact, we've got it here. Just to give you insight, I got this from my military guy. I can confirm that she has the support of the United States of America, Canada, Britain, Russia, Australia, Japan, Philippines, South Korea, and the new Republic of China. The military operations of the US and the Allied forces inside the Republic of Canada also continue. Hold the line, shut up your TV, go outside without a mask, in groups if possible, live your lives. There is zero coronavirus pandemic in the Republic of Canada. Do not get vaccinated. But the support worldwide of the new governments, they've already come together from the US, Canada, Britain, Russia, Australia, Japan, Philippines, and South Korea, and they're currently linking up with the new republic in China as well. So
That's fantastic for Canada. They've been under such crap for so long. That's just another happy dance for Canada. Yay. Okay. A bit of a challenge, so here I am. Greetings, everyone, and welcome. I am Her Royal Majesty Queen Romana of the Kingdom of Canada, Commander-in-Chief and Queen, President, National Indigenous Chief of the Kingdom of Canada. And all the good titles that comes along with it that you may not yet know. Greetings to all of you, and welcome to the We the People of the Kingdom of Canada, North America, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, South America, Antarctica, Europe, Tartaria, and the entire world. Of course, we have here Comet wanting to take part in this conversation. To our honored guests, the children of the Kingdom of Canada and those around the world, head of states, prime ministers, presidents, crown princesses, crown prince, their rightful majesties, kings and queens of the Kingdom of Canada and around the world. You may notice I have addressed the We the People of the Kingdom of Canada as kings and queens, as they are that. And they are that around the world. For those of you who may not know who I am simply known as QR. The shot heard around the world. QR's royal decrees under natural law. Many of you may not be familiar with what happened last January 15, 2024 in Iowa. Read Iowa backwards, and it is America's War of Independence. January 15, 2024. America recognizing Queen Romana's royal decrees under natural law. Quite an honor, distinguished at that, to have for the very first time the Queen of the Kingdom of Canada for America to follow her royal decrees. Let that sink in. America is following Queen Romana's royal decrees under natural law. Admiralty law ends. Welcome natural law around the world. To the Kingdom of Canada's nationals, I commend you and congratulate you on having a team of dedicated humanitarian, we the people who have been traveling with Queen Romana this whole time. Their work is 24 hours, so is that of the Queen. They carry no guns and they wear no uniform. And yet they are the most powerful team known around the world. The very team who carried forward, persisted on natural law. As I have said, it is quite a distinguished honor to have America, the United States, under Queen Romana's royal decree, under natural law. To those of you watching in New Zealand, I read some of your comments on the main channel. It's 4:30 a.m., your local time. Welcome. I hope that you have a warm tea or coffee or hot chocolate, whatever it is that you drink, or some perhaps lemon juice with warm water. So welcome to all of you. To our viewers in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, North America, and South America, welcome to all of you. And Antarctica, and of course, Tataria, welcome. To our brothers and sisters visiting today from off-planet, welcome to all of you. Or we simply refer for now to our special guests as visiting species. I am honored to have all of you here and for taking time from millions of miles away from your star systems. You came to planet Earth. Thank you. The honor and privilege is all mine and that of we the people of this planet. Thank you, of course, for all of your assistance in liberating planet Earth and the protection of Homo sapiens. Thank you. With that said, before I start crying, as I get emotional when it comes to recognizing the amount of work and the assistance rendered and the trust bestowed by our brothers and sisters of divine light beings upon myself. Thank you. I better get to the to our chit chat now. And of course, before, and how can I always not remember? Of course I do. My sister number one, greetings. I will see you very soon. And to my sisters number two. Twos and brothers number one and number twos. Thank you. And hello. All right. To our honored guests that are around me, and of course our team members, thank you for making this, again, live stream possible. You can see that the team in the background is to the very last minute, making sure that their queen and your queen is able to have this coffee with you today. And of course, Her Excellency Darlene Ondi, who is always, shall I say, prepared and always in the background, making sure that the team is on time and preparing everything for our event today. Which, by the way, the next one I shall announce here will be the oath taking of your ministers, your bureaus, head of bureaus, national. So I hope you will join us during that time as well. Without further ado, Your Excellency, I hand it over to you. What happened to my coffee?
Well, the puppies were visiting their, I will say here, mom. And so because we have a little bit of an unstable platform, I wanted to make certain that it wasn't spilled. So there you go. And
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So Your Royal Majesty, I wanted to again thank you for taking time out of your full schedule. It is extraordinary to watch and observe and be a part of the experience, the journey, traveling with Her Royal Majesty Queen Romana March. And I, first and foremost, on behalf of the Peace and Prosperity Mobile Government team, want to thank you for your dedication and your love and your support and your discipline in holding us accountable to be in a best service and on purpose for we the people of the Kingdom of Canada and of course around the world.
I have a tissue.
We have a tissue.
Thank
I
you,
have
Tanya.
tissues.
Sorry, everyone.
And I also wanted to thank you for working late into last evening and of course early in the day for this presentation. You can see it here on the monitor. We'll be going through that together. So without further ado, Your Majesty, I wanted to go through this beautiful PowerPoint that you have put together for we the people and all our guests here. So beautiful front page of a gorgeous picture of yourself, and thank you for posting that one of myself there. And it's Coffee with Her Royal Majesty Queen Romana March and Press Secretary. This is again an honorable event. Sunday, March 3, 2024, noon Saskatchewan time in the Kingdom of Canada. So I would really love for you, Queen Romana, to share with we the people. We will go through this PowerPoint that you have put together and to share all the work that you've been doing, the direction and the focus of where you're taking the kingdom for we the people.
Okay. All right. Well, many of you, and we have Chris that can go to the next slide there. So the Kingdom of Canada's focus and direction, years 2023 to 2050. Bullet number 1, family. 2 is well-being, your health. We have changed the word health because when I looked it up in foreign language, it actually meant illness. The play on words. Here we go. So we are changing the word health to well. Next is safety, security, and sovereignty. Next is your natural resources, wealth creation, and wealth management. The challenges we have had with the previous system was that we had wealth mismanagement and natural resources misgovernance. A complete catastrophe. Now, when you think of family, we have to bring back the entire family structure. So that includes, of course, your children, youth, that's masculine and feminine adults. And if you're wondering why I have used masculine and feminine rather than male and female, there's also another word play with that. The male and female refers to animals, not Homo sapiens. And of course, we have our elders and ancestors and the younglings, our infants.
Queen Romana,
Yes.
would you mind, while we have this page up front here regarding the ancestors, I know that there was a there's a mindset about that word. If you could please explain that to the people.
Well, ancestors really has nothing to do with someone being dead. It really has to do with the bloodline. And to those of you who perhaps have been paying attention to our brothers and sisters' messages, the divine beings, they refer to the Homo sapiens on this star system as their ancestors. So they are, our brothers and sisters, are the evolved Homo sapiens. They are coming from the future, if you are to simplify the explanation. So they are the future of Homo sapiens. They have evolved. And then when they refer to Homo sapiens on this planet, we are referred to as ancestors. As I said, it has nothing to do with someone being dead or alive. It has to do with the bloodline. And out of respect for our senior citizens, our senior nationals, I have changed the word seniors to ancestors to return dignity, respect and honor, and privilege to our ancestors. Thank you for asking me to elaborate on the ancestors.
Yes, and one more question, if I may, Queen Romana, and that is, you have infants here. However, in the Kingdom of Canada, we refer to children as the VIPs of all VIPs, and would you be open to clarifying that even further for me, the people?
The use of infant simply means that those are the newly manifested Homo sapiens. So the age between 0 day to 1 year old.
Perfect, thank you. Now we're going to get into a topic that is really the focus. I've been speaking a lot to this topic next on Queen Romana Tell Real Vision News. Housing, housing, housing. 1.5 trillion backed by gold and silver in the Kingdom of Canada. Would you please speak to this remarkable, remarkable topic?
Again, when you're referring to a family, the first need of a family is to have a stable, safe, and secure home, and to feel honored, dignified, and respected. That self-dignity. And so it is important that each and every Canadian national has his or her home. There's something about having a place where there's a door that you can shut and feel to have that privacy. To have that sense of belonging, your family. And at the end of the day, I said to be able to spend time in private. It's very, very important. And of course, for the children. To have a stable and secure home. It is the foundation where children emulate what they see every day. And it is also a foundation in having a structure, in providing guidance to the children to have a stable home where they feel safe and secure. And as I said before, there is zero reason why in a nation, in a country, in a kingdom, with vast natural resources from oil and gas, diamonds, gold, and all different precious metals from coast to coast to coast to coast to coast. There is zero reason why we even have home, or pardon me, unhoused Canadians. Zero. There's zero justification other than it was planned purposely and intentionally and mismanaged our natural resources and misgoverned. And that ends.
Yes, it's very powerful what you were speaking about with the family unit, Queen Romana, with that term, more is caught than is taught, about the children having that stable, safe environment. And did you want to speak any further to at the end of this page, you have suffering ends.
Yes. When you have someone who is unhoused, the suffering is incalculable. You cannot calculate the loss of dignity, the loss in self-respect, the mental anguish of someone who doesn't know where his or her head is going to be laid in the evening.
Agreed. I don't know if you have anything further that you'd like to add to the housing initiative, but certainly there is so much housing that is taking place across the Kingdom of Canada. It is one of the most spoken of topics on Queen Romana Tell World Vision News from all provinces.
Yes.
Territories.
The 1.5 trillion, as I said, until each and every Canadian who requires a home has a home. There's no stopping the priority in building homes. On top of that, when I took a look at the constructions, the building, how efficient or inefficient the policies put in place by those who were selected. You were not elected, you were selected. Let's get to the point. The policies put forward were designed to impede wealth creation for we the people. In fact, it was designed to hinder the abilities of individuals and families to create wealth, with the exception of the select few. But the majority of we the people were always having to catch up. And at every turn, there was a fee for permit, to get a permit, to fix a bathroom, you had to have a permit, to fix something in front of your house, you had to have a permit. Literally, you couldn't sneeze without having a permit. And you call that democracy? In fact, those systems were designed to make profit on the backs of we the people. That was the Admiralty law, the maritime law. We are now under natural law. And we the people who own their home should be able to do whatever it is they like within their home, within their own property, so long as it doesn't harm we the people, the public. The government must get out of we the people's home and bedrooms And best of all, you must get out of the We the People's wallet. This is why we no longer have income tax in the Kingdom of Canada.
In regards to we the people being taught what, thinking that the word health was actually in our benefit, and it was, again, trickery of words. And the I Am Cured program, 8.6 billion that has been invested in that program. Drug addiction, illicit and or prescribed others. I'd really like you to speak about this I Am Cured program. It is extraordinary.
The I Am Pure program, when I took a look at the existing pharmaceutical designed health, well-being, it was the opposite of what it was intended to do. And the system put in place was created so that the healing of an individual and the whole family was never accomplished because there was a missing link. For example, someone who is a drug addict and has a family, great, they would have access to a facility where they are being healed. But then the other side of that equation is they may have a child or a spouse at home. And what happens if that drug addict was the breadwinner, the one who was working and supporting the entire family? So while this individual is getting help, the family, the spouse, and the children wasn't getting the assistance they needed. There was no financial support. Also, the aspect in terms of once the individual has healed, was there a program where they can go and work within their community? Was there a training? Also, was there a follow-up to ensure that they didn't relapse? And how long was that? Was there a support in place? No. So if you're talking about a family and you're wanting to heal someone within that family, you must first understand that just because only one member of that family is a drug addict, it doesn't mean that the rest of the family members are not affected. Emotionally, psychologically, sometimes that drug addict may end up beating someone else in that family, abusing them physically. Plus, if that drug addict doesn't have any more money, what's most likely to happen is they would take all of the money they have to buy drugs, and once that's finished, they'll go to what can they sell next? What family assets do they have that they can sell to buy drugs? So you see, you have an entire family affected. And then if you have children within that household. So this is what this I Am Cure program is all about. This is a one-stop shop that makes sure not only the drug addict is being assisted, but the family also is being assisted. Plus, there's the training and employment to ensure that transition from being a drug addict to being cured to being a productive member of society, while the family member or the family structure at home is being supported. Because it's quite difficult to be focused on healing when you know that your spouse or your children or your parents at home don't have don't know where to get their next meal, or they don't have access to housing, for example. So this is what this I Am Cure program, it is designed for the entire family. And while that individual is away at the facility, there are also facilities that allows the family members to come and visit and spend time with the individual who is in the rehab. And they don't have to worry about financial burden of where they're going to get their food and rent or mortgage, because there's that assistance. So we are, in this case, curing, helping the entire family, so that when the drug addict and who has been cured returns home, the family, the children, and the spouse are then well equipped from the support they have received to live with someone and to adjust with living with someone who has gone through the drug addiction and the I Am Cure program. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Majesty. What I very much appreciate about this I Am Cured program is how you took into account how everything was so connected together. And the short term, the medium term, and the long term planning of all involved. And even the title of the program, I am, in all caps, cured. It's not curing, it's not I will be. It is that the most powerful statement, the I am cured. And I want to thank you so much for this program. Again, so extraordinary what you're doing for we the people.
Thank you. And also I wanted to add that the wording is very specific. As you know, words have energies and power. So I am cured is a declaration. And also it removes the stigma that is carried when someone is a drug addict or has gone through drug addiction or whatever type of addiction. There is a stigma that the society as a whole, when they view that individual, attached to that illness that they have gone through. So the declaration, I am cured, it eradicates the stigma, not only from the society's point of view, but also from the individual.
That is powerful, because what we say we are and what we think we are manifests. So that is, again, such a extraordinary declaration. And I'm going to take us into our next part of the presentation, unless you have anything further you wanted to speak to the I Am Cured program, Your Majesty.
I'm good. We are okay to continue.
Thank you. Now, this next part of our conversation, I know everyone will be awaiting with bated breath on the edge of their seats, because this has been a question, a topic, a hot topic, by the way, regarding well health med beds, also known as celestial chambers, and $5 billion, pardon me, $5 billion backed by gold and silver invested into this very program. So I would appreciate you going into much detail. I'm certain that there are many that are awaiting this information from you.
Well, first, I would like everyone to recognize, again, going back to the pharmaceutical industry health well design, which was doing the opposite. Many of you, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the pharmaceutical industry made profit when you were ill, not when you were cured. So from a business perspective, of course, you wouldn't want, if that is your target market, for example, you would want that individual to continue buying the medicine that you're selling. It's pure economics. It has nothing to do with looking after and making sure the individuals are cured. So that's where the mismanagement of your resources came from. Or shall we say corruption, to be exact, right? Because you had to be corrupt in order to implement such pharmaceutical strategy where we handed over money to the industry that made money when we the people were sick. So we were paying them to maintain their agenda to keep we the people sick and to prolong their illness. Give me one medicine that has cured a life-threatening illness, a cancer. Give me one. Right. So, going back to your med beds, these are celestial chambers, not the carbon copy of what celestial chamber is. For those of you who have perhaps watched the Star Trek program, remember that Star Trek was not a science fiction, it was a diary of someone's experience. And all the technologies of the select few, or a diary of the select few who have had access to and privilege to go and travel off planets to other star systems, to have met different species who have had that technology. This technology has been gifted to we the people for decades and decades and decades ago. But of course, it wasn't profitable to have we the people who are all well, of course. So what happened to the technology? It was suppressed. It was kept from we the people because there was no profit to be had. Now, who do you think would have had access to the med beds, this celestial chambers healing machines? Your privileged head of states. Now think clearly. Who would have had access to those who are from different planets? Let that sink in. The very people that you have thought were there to protect you were the very people who kept these technologies from you, because there was no profit to be had, as I said. And so they agreed to keep the technology from you, we the people, so that their friends from the pharmaceutical industry could continue profiting from you. Let's not beat around the bush. That's what happened. And there's the select powerful presidents of powerful countries were the ones entrusted with those technologies. So never again will they be trusted with anything on this planet, for they have demonstrated how unworthy they were of the trust and privilege and responsibilities they held on behalf of we the people of this planet. With that said, going back to our med beds, each province and each territory has a number of med beds allocated based on your population. This is to ensure that someone, for example, from Ontario doesn't come to Saskatchewan because Saskatchewan has only, 1 million plus people, whereas Ontario has how many millions? You can't, because you think the line up here would be less. But remember, they would also have less number of med beds available to them, because I've calculated that based on population. The allocation of med beds is based on the population size of every province and territory. So if you're in Ontario, stay in Ontario. Also, we have very, shall we say, low-hanging fruits who continue to ask for membership fee, some sort of payment to access the med beds. From the beginning, I said that in the Kingdom of Canada, the med beds, access to med beds, the use of med beds is free for we the people, for Canadian nationals. There is no need to pay for any user's fee, because it is already being paid by the we the people. The budget of $5 billion, that is we the people's money, not anyone else's money. So they don't have to pay again any user's fee. We're not running a corporation here, folks. We're running a country. There's a big difference. Your kakistocracy ends.
So with certainty, we can say if someone reaches out to someone or is charging any type of fee for use of med beds, that it is a fraud.
It is a complete fraud. And as I had said before, the use of med beds is based on, number one, the children that were recovered from underground, the individuals recovered from underground, the tunnels. Number two are veterans, and then the general public, based on the most critical situation. So if you're just waiting for a teeth or hair to grow, you'll be the last in the
lineup?
In the lineup, okay? So no.
That's good for some people to know, Your Majesty. So.
Okay.
And Queen Romana, you're also with the infrastructure, which we will be speaking to, making these med beds available for those that are in very remote rural areas as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Part of that also is the EMS, the ambulances we have, were to be converted into med beds so that the med beds can go to our we the people who live remotely and are unable to travel to the main cities or the areas where the med beds are. So your ambulances turn into med beds. Imagine having, for example, if you were in a construction and your arm got cut off, and then the med beds ambulance comes to you, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the road there with the ambulance, waiting for your arm to be to regrow. That's one of the technology capabilities of med beds, is to regrow the missing limbs. So we are in the business of curing and restoring we the people to their origin, not prolonging their sufferings via medication that maintains and prolong the illness. No. That's what I meant when I said sufferings end.
And
one moment before I forget. And also, this is to our brothers and sisters, our veterans, brothers and sisters, military veterans to be exact, in the United States. The last time I checked, there were 19 million of you, and I have extended the use of medbeds. After all Canadian nationals have gone through the medbeds, you are more than welcome to come to the Kingdom of Canada and you make use of our medbeds.
This may come up as a question, Your Majesty, so I'm going to pose it here.
Okay.
And that is those that claim to be permanent residents. They're going to say, Your Majesty, what about the permanent residents in the Kingdom of Canada? Do we have access to these medbeds?
The answer is no. Return to your country or make sure you're a Canadian citizen, because the priority number one is Canadian citizens, Canadian nationals, pardon me, Canadian nationals. Also remember that dual citizenship, dual nationality, the Kingdom of Canada recognizes not.
And would you remind we the people why that is? There is no dual citizenship, because I know it was mentioned previous on a few posts, and as a reminder to we the people.
I have issued a royal decree pertaining to zero dual citizenship or dual nationality from the very perspective of our sovereignty and security and safety and security. I have also reiterated before that, for example, if the individual who holds dual citizenship, let's, for example, take country X. I don't want to name a country, so we'll use country X. For example, we have somebody from country X who holds country X nationality and Canadian nationality. Now, what happens if country X and the Kingdom of Canada, for example, have military or security disagreement or sovereignty disagreement? Now, it comes to loyalty, does it not? I am about to sneeze. Excuse me. Thank you. It comes to loyalty. So who do you think is that individual from country X going to defend? Country X or the Kingdom of Canada? So you see the dilemma there. Also, when the Kingdom of Canada is prosperous and safe and secure, those with dual citizenship, I'm not saying that all, but I've observed this, that when the Kingdom of Canada is prosperous and safe and secure, they all stay here and take the benefits and enjoy the privileges of being nationals. But the minute the Kingdom of Canada, for example, goes into shits, excuse the language, children, then those individuals run back to country X instead of staying here and helping fix what is needed to be fixed in the kingdom. So what is the dual citizenship, dual nationality really is for? Who benefits? By my example, the Kingdom of Canada doesn't benefit. That is why the kingdom doesn't have dual citizenship, dual nationality. For our safety, security, and sovereignty reasons. A perfect example that I was reading the other day when it comes to our safety, security, and sovereignty was the scientists that were working at our level 4 biological facility
in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Need I say more about dual citizenship, about dual nationality? Right?
Yes, that was a very recent story we spoke to, and that's a very, very valid example that you shared with Queen Romana. Is there anything further in regards to the medbed celestial chambers that you would like to add before we move on to our next topic?
No.
Okay.
The $5 billion that I've allocated recently, it has to do with the operational, meaning the staffing costs, the operational daily, because as I said before, that the medbeds centers must be open 24 hours a day, even if it means the team there working have to have a 3 different shifts, 3 times 8 hour shift, to make sure that we the people of the Kingdom of Canada get to that and get well immediately. That is why I've placed high amount of money in that operational for medbeds, operational expenses, because that's for 24 hours staffing, security, and maintenance expense.
And it's true, Queen Romana, that the training and the locations have already been designated, that there is not going to be people that are going to open up their own well centers and bring in med beds. Is that something you'd like to speak to?
Find another industry, because having a copy, a look-alike healing chamber is not going to bring you any profit, because the celestial chamber is not the same as what the Homo sapiens here have tried to back engineer or reverse engineer. And anything that resembles our medbeds, the celestial chambers, and promoting that as a medbed, we the people will catch on to that it is not the real one. And you will not have any clients anyways. So I suggest that you go and invest your funds somewhere else, because they're not the same. You can't fake your way around this one.
Could be like that sausage that was...
Yes, like, the scientist, the expert from France who cut up a Spanish sausage known as chorizo and presented that as another planet. Let that sink in. What other kinds of experts do you think exist? Looks like we'll be closing many space agencies in this country.
All right, well, we're going to move on to our next topic, Queen Romana, and this is one that is very, very close to the heart of many. It's a very emotional. I've seen IAMs cry over this next topic that we're going to speak to, and this was a very recent decree that you decreed for we the people, and that is poverty elimination in the Kingdom of Canada. 100 billion yearly for food, water, and I'd really like you to go into this one in a very deep fashion. Thank you.
You will notice that everything that we're covering here has to do with families. The kingdom has targeted very specifically what needed fixing, the root cause, the root problem, and not just bandaging it, it's eradicating that problem. as I sometimes use the word, I took all of the old systems, policies, and procedures and wiped the floor with it. Now, this moving to the poverty elimination. Number one, you can't have a stable family. There's a saying that when hunger knocks at the door, love goes out the window. There's also another saying that it takes an entire country, not a village, to raise a child. If you are a head of state, as I am, you would make sure that we the people, first and foremost, have the very basic, yes, taken care of. So from housing to now, the elimination of poverty. By opening, number one, grocery stores for we the people. This poverty elimination not only eliminates poverty, but it also eliminates those industries or sub-industries created strategically and intentionally out of the policies and programs created and put in place by the old system, i.e. the food banks, i.e. the non-profit organizations that were receiving money, we the people's money, to distribute food to we the people. And also businesses that were given, for example, money for food for we the people, instead of directly putting that money into we the people's account. The latest example that I had read was this Northern nutrition something program where they had the old system. And when I'm talking about old system, meaning the old government, the government that was under Admiralty law, maritime law, was giving millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to a grocery owner to subsidize food costs for we the people up north. Let's back up the bus, or in this case, the RV. If you really wanted to fix the problem up north and manage the wealth of we the people, I'm talking about the cash that you were handing over to the grocers. If you wanted to, number one, fix the problem, number two, manage we the people's money well, you would have, because it's already at your disposal, you would have used, number one, you would have started a public grocery up north. Number two, use the military cargo planes to deliver food there and medicine and water. And number three, you would directly put that money you were giving to the grocers directly into the hands of we the people who needed it the most. Capiche? Simple. You see, simply throwing money into a problem doesn't solve the problem. You actually have to have the brain to solve a problem. And it cannot be a potato head. So this is what this poverty elimination is all about. Next is the cost of food. You have corporations and with the kakistocracy about this supply chain, another kakistocracy. Who was the idiot that signed on that one? The supply chain. You had corporations controlling the seeds of the farmers, where the farmers could go buy it, what kind of seed they could plant. And then you had corporations who had the monopoly in a particular area that would control the supply and demand, and the kakistocracy about the farmers dumping their over quota production, i.e. milk. So were you really about eliminating poverty? Or were you there to maintain the profit level of the corporations? And then there was the kakistocracy about groceries were not able to donate or contribute or give away food that was 1 day old, or fruits and vegetables that were 1 day old, to the people. So you destroyed that instead of giving it to the people to eat. That was another kakistocracy, the policies. And what about this quota? This quota is nothing more than maintaining the level of profits for the corporations, nothing to do with helping the people get out of poverty. So I eliminated that kakistocracy. As I said, I used your policies and procedures and wiped the floor with it. Now we are having the people's grocery stores across the country. Every city, every town will have the people's grocery stores, where we the people, as part of the elimination of poverty, can walk into their very own grocery store and take whatever they like, because it is already paid for by their very own money. That is what this 100 billion is all about yearly. Without going through the, shall we say, the CIA interrogation process of having to explain over and over why they are homeless and why they need food. That's what has anyone experienced going to the food bank? And that food bank, by the way, most of the food that they give out are processed food, not even nutritious. And the people, some of the people, not all, but some people that work there are corrupt AF and discriminate like there's no tomorrow. So to solve that kakistocracy and to stop the relentless re-victimization of the people, dishonoring and disrespecting the people, is our people's grocery stores. They can walk in there. All they have to do is present their Canadian nationality card, and no questions asked. They can shop, and at the end, when they go through the counter, the bill is already labeled paid, and it is credited from the people's account under poverty elimination budget. And as I said, to those who may want to apply to work for the people's grocery stores, make sure that you remember the people walking in there are owners, not customers. They are owners of those grocery stores, thereby bestow upon them respect, privilege, honor, humanity. It's their money. Everything that's in that store, the We the People store, is owned by the We the People. They don't need to explain to you how come they became homeless, or how come they need food, or how come they need extra toilet paper, for example, or how come they're taking an extra bag of apple or potatoes or extra gallon of milk. They don't have to explain that to you. All you have to do is take the Canadian nationality card. That's all that's needed. Zero interrogation. This is returning honor, dignity, and humanity to the We the People, and changing the mindset that everything in this building they own. They're not your customers. They are owners. And especially our ancestors going in there and our children. They can take whatever they want. It's their money to begin with, not yours.
Well, I wanted to add to that, Your Majesty, if you don't mind, because I know you had spoken with the team about the looks on the children's faces when they're able to go through, say, with their mother and finally not hear that conversation. Oh, honey, you can't have that. We can't afford that. You know, finally that We the People are going to be able to experience, as you say it, Queen Romana, exotic fruits and food that sometimes are cost prohibitive, and to have the children, like the looks of joy that they can have whatever they want. They can grab something off the shelf and eat it while their parents are with them shopping, or if they're shopping with their grandparents. And to see the ancestors, the elders, have the ability to fill up those carts and get whatever they want. That is extraordinary.
Yes. And it reminds me of several times where I have observed one of our ancestors who was lining up, as I was lining up through the grocery store, counting every penny, trying to decide whether she was going to buy milk or a bag of potato. Poverty elimination, as I said. The sufferings of the We the People ends.
Yes, and I've had the extraordinary privilege of being with Her Royal Majesty Queen Romana Didelot on many occasions, and this isn't just in the grocery store, but because we're speaking of food at the moment, to be in grocery stores and have Her Royal Majesty pay the bill of our elders, our ancestors, and the look of shock, of surprise, of awe, and many of them get utterly emotional because they've never had that experience before. And just you can see the look of relief, you know, that they'll have this additional money that they can actually have a little bit of living to do. So thank you for those experiences. They've been, certainly teaches it, again, setting the example of Earth 2.0 and as it is meant to be and always needed to be. And thank goodness for Her Royal Majesty Queen Romana Didelot bringing that to us to set the example and show the way.
As I said, Your Excellency, Darlene, that there is no reason for anyone in the Kingdom of Canada to be poor, to be unhoused, to be not having dinner. I am also aware that some of our ancestors have had the misfortune of having to eat cat food because they couldn't afford to buy food. That's repugnant to the core. With a country that pride itself as G7 industrialized, and to have anyone inside the kingdom especially our ancestors, to go through that suffering is, as I said, it's repugnant. That's the only way you can describe that, and it's shameful.
Definitely is. So thank you so much. That is such a
Elimination. The question was, Your Royal Majesty, will the distribution also be owned by we the people, or is that going to remain private? The question perhaps was coming from, will I, as a business individual, will they be able to deliver fruits and vegetables and what have you to other businesses? The answer is we the people, to ensure that we are not only eliminating poverty, but ensuring that we have food security, and we the people of the Kingdom of Canada live in abundance and guaranteed to have food regardless of the weather or regardless of the circumstance. Is we the people will have a branch, the delivery branch. So the trucking, we will have our own delivery trucks to go and pick up the groceries or the produce from the farmers. Also, we can mix it up where the farmers will be able to deliver their products or their produce to we the people stores. But if that option is not possible, then our own trucks will go out and make sure that delivery happens. So the distribution of food and fruits and vegetables, that remains to be small business. And in fact, I would encourage, and I'm about to issue a royal decree to support our small and medium businesses. So that will be one that I would encourage we the people to start a business. And if required, we will provide assistance, financial assistance for we the people who are wanting to get into that business, to have their trucks or equipments, for example. Don't expect billions as far as one company asking for funding. It's not happening. I said small and medium, not large corporations, right? And that will allow, also encourage competition. Many say Queen Romana's royal decrees are anti-capitalism. The opposite is true. But my priority at this very moment is to make sure that poverty is eliminated, unhoused, we the people in the kingdom have their homes, and they are cured. And of course, we have the wealth generation targeted very specifically our industries, not just wasting we the people's money for the sake of investing.
And what's also very important is how involved the farmers are going to be in the poverty elimination, Queen Romana.
Correct. Yes. And part of that poverty elimination was the irrigation, water irrigation for our farmers, so that they can have water at any time of the year wherever and whenever they need that water supply for their farms. This is essential to ensure that we the people, again, food security. We have, by the way, I have created a ministry or bureau that handles specifically food and water. It's a very specific ministry that will ensure that we the people of the Kingdom of Canada has stockpile of food and clean water. And that whenever it's needed, we the people will have access to it. That is on top of your grocery stores. This one is a stockpile. It's a reserve. I had instructed your Minister of Food and Water to stockpile 10 years worth of food and water supply, enough to feed the entire country. So my estimate at the moment is 40 million. Feed 40 million for 10 years equivalent. That is the stockpile I have instructed your minister to begin working on, and the distribution of that and access to that, of course.
Yes, and I look forward to hearing from that ministry. Very, very important ministry, as are all the bureaus and ministries. So on to our next topic, Queen Romana, and again, this was a area that's very much spoken to over the last 3 years specifically, and this was again a area where you had mentioned to these individuals to find a new vocation, but again, this comes back to the love, respect, dignity of the family. Comes back to the family, and this has to do with home education. You're even changing the word from homeschooling to home education. 938 billion backed by gold and silver. Zero funding for traditional dumbed down training. End of programming. And how exciting is that?
Yes, the homeschooling, it's actually multiple fold. Number one, that was to remove our children from the traditional dumbing down programming buildings and being fed very immoral information, being taught the business of adults in the bedroom at age 5, the confusing, the deliberate creation of confusion with regards to their gender. Under natural law, there are only 2 genders or sexes, feminine and masculine. And as I said, there's only one law, and that is natural law. Not common law, not civil law, not admiralty law, not whatever law, it's natural law. And if you would like to talk about science, use biology. This study of, what's the branch of biology that studies the sex of even trees, animals, and Homo sapiens? Use that. You only find 2 sexes, feminine and masculine. Yes? And with regards to the homeschooling, home education, schooling, as many of you now are aware, the word schooling is dumbing down the children, the intentional dumbing down. So it was always, the malevolent beings always used words and placed it in front of the people who were not aware of the origins of the words. And the purpose of the home education is, number one, to return the power, responsibility, and privilege to the parents. The privilege to guide, the privilege to educate, the privilege to discipline their children, and the privilege to teach their children what they best think suits their children, not the system. So the one size fits all education, pharmaceutical education, pharmaceutical industry, designed education is finito, kaput, finished. Also, you may ask why so much money invested into home education. It's, as I said, it's multiple fold. Number one, there's budget there for every child based on the age range they are in. Budget for supplies, even field trips expenses, materials. Number two, there's also budget for the either it's a mom or a dad who will decide or has decided to stay home. It's an income for that individual. Imagine that. Where have you heard a country, a kingdom that pays parents to stay home and educate their children? It's the Kingdom of Canada. So the main caretaker, for instance, who will stay at home and take care of the children and educate the children, receives $5,000 monthly income. The excuse has been that when I first released the royal decree, or not the excuse, but the challenges faced by majority of parents, is that Queen Romana, if we stayed home, we are a two-income household, and one income cannot support the entire household. This is why I have allocated funding for the parent who is going to stay home to educate the child. And there's a separate budget for each child, depending, as I said, on the age range. So what that does is then allow for either the father or the mother, the second earner in the family, to be able to stay home, or the first earner, it doesn't matter who decides to stay home, allows them the opportunity to stay home, educate their children, and raise their children. Because what has happened was that the old system encouraged, yes, everyone is equal and that everyone should have the right to go to work. Yes, correct. But at what expense? Whose expense is it exactly? Because that idea, in fact, destroyed the very, very foundation of a family. Especially when you look at what has happened to the society, where now we are having to deal with a household that must have two income earners just to survive. But when you look at that, number one, the children, if that household has a child or children, what happens to that child? It's she or he gets sent to school, in this case to education, the dumbed down building, all day long, being raised, being taught, being guided, misguided is the correct word, by those in the system that were given a walking, a program, a particular script on what to teach the children. It has nothing to do with teaching the children and empowering them to study what they like and enjoy. It has to do with producing labor force to educate them just enough to be able to read and write and understand and follow instructions, but not intelligent enough to question the dumb bosses that are handling them as bosses. Yes? That's what the idea was with this dumbing down the children. They were being raised not to be independent thinkers, but to be enslaved, to be workers for other people. How many elementary or secondary schools do you see teaching children how to start a business and how to manage money and how to create wealth? Zero. So this is what this is all about, is number one, to allow the parents to be, one or two parents to stay home. If they can, by using 1955 prices, two parents can more than stay at home with the 5,000 income monthly. But the idea, as I said, is to make sure that the child or children are at home, away from the programming, away from the devious information that they're being given, away from the intentional confusion that's being created. And at the end of the day, children are depressed and so confused, they don't know what to do, what to say. They have lost their self-identity. So this home education program allows for, again, the safety and security of the children, away from the dumb-dumbing buildings, away from the system that was designed to enslave them, and into the care and guidance of their moms and dads. Because what has happened is that we had feminine and masculine that would go to work because they have children to support. But, for example, someone who earns $100,000 a year, in the old system, if you took a formula, for example, 100,000, what was the income tax rate? 45%?
At least.
Okay, so do the math. Someone grab a pen, write down income, 100,000. Tax rate, 45%. That's 45,000 out of 100,000. Now, you only have 55,000 left. Now, take from that 55,000 your traveling costs, your expenses to buy clothes because you have to go to the office, your gas expenses, your car expenses, your insurance expenses, your babysitter needs to be paid because you're at work instead of looking after your baby at home or your children. How much do you have left from that 100,000? This is why in the Kingdom of Canada, the first royal decree, one of the first ones I've issued, was the elimination of income tax. Because can you imagine if someone who was making 100,000 was able to keep 100,000 every time they receive that paycheck? They don't need second income, do they? But because everything they were taxed to death, even when they were dead, they were still being taxed. Even the coffin was taxed. Even the death certificate was taxed. You see, there was nothing. We the people, the system had placed policies there where we the people was constantly being pushed down instead of being given a handout. So what happens? You had families who were fighting, who were depressed, and when they're depressed because they can hardly breathe, because they find themselves working 80 hours a week instead of 40 just to catch up, but they didn't realize, some did, that the more they work, the more their income tax raised because of the overtime. So the more they work, the less money they took home. You see. Whereas with zero income tax, every penny you earn, every dollar you earn There's no thug there. There is no gang there that's saying automatically you must pay me 45% of every dollar that you make. That was the old system. In the Kingdom of Canada, you don't have that. This is one thing that sets what a true monarch does and what a fake one does, a corporation monarch does. I work for we the people of the kingdom. The old system worked for the corporation. Their main purpose was to create profit for the corporation, not to cure, not to help we the people. And on top of that, of course, there was the theatrics every 4 years or so, some every 18 months. You know what I'm talking about? So this is the home education. This allows the children to be safe in their homes, to allow for parents, 1 or 2 parents, depending on how they manage their monies, to stay home and guide and care and raise their children. This is the very first time that the kingdom is paying parents to stay home and educate their children. And so they don't have to be exposed to some man who's pretending to be a woman and is exposing himself in the children's bathroom, in the girls' bathroom, or whatever the case may be. So that kakistocracy ends. Whatever makes you think that a child would grow up in a normal environment with such display of disrespect. Zero guidance. This is why we have so many young children, especially girls, who think that they have to be so thin to be liked, and that they have to be so perfect like Barbie to be liked and to feel important and honored and respected. We're putting an end to that kakistocracy, and it begins with the home education. And also returning the responsibility to raise their children back to the parents. It's your responsibility to raise a child. If you're going to take part in the adult's business in the bedroom, you better be ready to raise that child. Because having children is not like eating a bowl of rice that when it's hot you can spit it out. And we're going to also, part of the home education is to ensure that children, our teenagers, don't become parent teenagers. How many do you see teenagers? They think that it's the new vogue to have a child in a carriage at age 14 or 16. What future do you think that child has when the parent is also a child? What kind of guidance do you think that 14-year-old or 16-year-old child can provide to an infant? They're still at 14, 16, they're still waiting for body parts to come up. And yet they're having children already. So what kind of society do you think that is? So this is what this home education is all about, is we are making sure that those who, as I said, take part in the adult's business in the bedroom realize that it comes with immense responsibility to have that child.
Queen Romana, I know we've also mentioned the statement several times that parents are not, the parents are not friends of the children.
Correct. Also that capistocracy narrative, saying that parents are the friends of their children. I'm sorry, what? A parent who has several decades, 3-4 decades of life experiences versus a child who is less than 10 years old, less than 20 years old. How do you compare your life experiences to a child and say that you are equal as friends? Did you get up on the wrong side of the bed and decided that your children who requires guidance, discipline, and needs your wisdom, all of a sudden became your friend? Remove that from your mindset. That's not how you raise a child. I don't have children of my own, but I can tell you that I've watched plenty of parents that I don't need to have my own child to repeat the capistocracy that you go through. I don't have children here, but I have children up there. Some of you may have asked, Queen Romana, are Princess and Comet your children from up there? The answer is yes. Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to add to the home education, Queen Romana, the very exciting part that children will be able to learn what they love. They'll be actually learning from trades, people that are experts, IAMs that are experts in that field that can come to the home or however the parent, guardian plans on doing it, but to have the extraordinary experience of children having fun at learning. Correct. And learning what they love and choose to do versus the previous mentality of, no, my son or daughter is going to be this or that because that's what we choose them to be.
Correct. So the societal dictate as to how children should learn or what children should learn, that programming that they have to fit within the, how many of you grow up with, you have to study, either be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, because that's where all the money is made, and then at a certain age you have to get married, you have to have 2.5 children by the age 30 because especially the pressure put on ladies to be married and have children at a certain age, that's gone. When it comes to the children learning, it'll be a child interest focused. So if a child wants to study music, then hire, using the funding that's given to you via the home education, then the parents can hire experts in music, teachers in music. If the child is wanting to be an engineer, then hire someone who's going to teach that child engineering. The same if they wanted to learn science, the same thing. So from a group learning environment, you are now bringing your child into a child-focused environment learning, bringing them tutors, private tutors. And what happens is when you have a child who enjoys learning science, then you have the best scientists, the best doctor. The same if they want to be engineers. By focusing and harnessing on the interest of that child, you're actually encouraging them to be the best that they can be and not wasting their time learning about languages and learning about math if they have no interest in math? Because it's actually against their intellect. And it's torture. I'm sure children and adults have sat in a classroom and saying, what am I doing here? And some will say, I'll never use this particular equation, algebra, in my lifetime, and yet I'm being forced to learn algebra, for example, or chemistry. I have no interest in becoming a scientist. How come I'm having to learn chemistry? Why am I having to memorize multiple, the scientific table codes when the child has no interest in science? So it's torture. Have you heard children say, I don't want to go to school, I hate school? Mm-hmm. It's because of that. So what this home education is all about is refocusing, returning the focus back onto the child. And you will see how the child blossoms, and learning about their interest is not going to be it's not going to be painful, because they're so interested in it that they'll continue learning. They want more and more and more. It's like a sponge. Their brain will absorb that because that's what interests them the most. That's how education should have been from the beginning. And that's where we are, in this case, directing our children, is the self-learning, not self-learning, but the child-focused learning rather than parents and the system learning focus.
And then, of course, the long-term benefit when you have children doing what they love, what that's going to do for the kingdom in regards to economic wealth,
Correct.
prosperity, happiness, well-being, everything.
Yes, yes. And that's why you have many, many children who are taking antidepressant because they're so depressed, just the thought of going to school every day, being forced to learn something that they have zero interest in, and then at the end of the month, they're given this test, and then of course they will fail, and that adds more to the depression of the child. So we put an end to that kakistocracy.
Definitely becomes a cycle for certain, and so extraordinary.
Because it was intentional. The old system designed it that way. But for us to have a robust economy, we must first have well-maintained highways, expanded highways to allow for we the people to travel and allow them to carry their goods, to transport their goods safely, on time, of course, and be able to know that if they were transporting, for example, produce, that their produce is not going to be rotten by the time it arrived at the destination because it had passed by the potholes and it's bruised. So you will have bruised apples, bruised whatever that they're transporting, right? And if you were transporting eggs and it continues to, you're continuously hitting potholes, depending on your packaging, you may not have all those eggs fully intact by the time you arrive at a destination. So that actually, really, our economy is dependent. They work in tandem with how your infrastructure is. If you have a well-maintained and available infrastructure, then you can count on we the people to be doing more business, because now they don't have to spend so much money maintaining their vehicles or repairing their vehicles after passing thousands of potholes along one highway. what is it? Trans-Canada Highway, for example. Some areas are really well maintained, while some areas is in shambles, in disrepair. Why is that? It's supposed to be what? Our national highway. So as I said before, the quality of our highways must be that we the people can travel there in their vehicle, albeit a flying vehicle or the regular vehicle we have, and they can put a quarter on the dashboard from where they began traveling to their destination, and that quarter doesn't fall because they are not passing by a pothole or a damaged highway. And as I said, we should be able to have a minimum 6 lanes of highways, 2 for transports and 1 for flying cars, 1 for regular cars, 1 for emergency vehicles, the first responders, and 1 for the train, electric train. Yes? And that's both sides of the highway, not just one direction. That's both directions. And so your highways and infrastructures, for the very first time, and while we were traveling this past summer, or last summer, I've observed so many highways, expansion, repairs, bridges being replaced from coast to coast to coast. Never, ever before has it been done where the entire country is expanding their highways, repairing their highways, replacing bridges that were too small or too dangerous or too unsafe for large vehicles to pass by. And this was going on all the way even during winter season. So we can have constructions going on all year round. When we were in Nova Scotia, I was watching as we were passing by during, it was snowing and it was late fall, late autumn, where bridges were being built and they were working and working. And then as we crisscrossed the country back and forth, I would ask the team to purposely go through specific areas to visit again that particular location to see how far the construction has progressed. So this is why when you see, and if you're wondering why the Queen continuously travels across the country, it's because I want to make sure that we the people's money are being spent. If it is allocated for infrastructure, it is allocated for infrastructure, and that the job is getting done. I cannot do that by staying stationary in one place.
I also recall one certain highway we were on that was completely being redone, and there was a very happy, excited worker that honored you and basically let you know that there was more work to be done, but how happy he was knowing that, basically his well-being was being taken care of.
Yes, this was, I believe we were in Ontario, or was it? Yes, Ontario, I believe, where we passed by this remote area. It's not so remote, but remote enough, where, there was a construction that was happening, and the gentleman stopped. He was a flagger, and he dropped his flag and stood in attention and saluted my RV and the entire convoy and he didn't stop saluting until the last vehicle of the convoy has passed where he was standing. And another one was, I had the opportunity as we were stopped waiting to go through, because there was, I think they were hauling gravel on the other side, so the trucks, we had to wait for those trucks to finish coming to the other side before we could go through. And I had the opportunity to have a small chat with the gentleman there, who said that they were so busy, meaning highway constructions, that he said after his team was finished at that location, they were already scheduled to be at another location to do more and more construction of highways. So it's, and he was quite happy. And basically his sense of there was so much work, there was so much job. I don't like to use the word job because it's just over broke is the definition. So I don't like to use that word. But there was so much wealth creation for we the people. That's the word I'm replacing the word job to wealth creation, because it's creating. The more we the people have work, the more they are able to create wealth for themselves and their families. And this gentleman who came and had a chat with me for a short while, you could see in his eyes the sense of dignity that he was working, compared to the many, many years ago where he was having a hard time finding work. So it's quite amazing to travel across the country and witness the reality of what's happening, especially with the building and expansion of our highways. As I said, never before. It used to be that it was almost like, you know, when there was a carrot that was being dangled. Oh yeah, well, if you guys behave properly, you know, we will give you 50 billion for your infrastructure, and then until the next, shenanigans 4 years later, or kakistocracy and theatrics is finished. This time around, it's the entire country, because I have allocated that money. And there's zero politics. I have no time for that. I'm too busy to be guiding the, I'm busy guiding the country and the other nations that you may not know. But as you can see now with the shot heard around the world, under natural law, my royal decrees are being implemented around the world. So I really have no time. And by the way, that's down there are the royal puppies, Comet and Princess, right behind here, having their own discussion. But what I was saying is that my schedule is very busy. And when I'm not having this chat with you, I have a to-do list that I have to keep being disciplined and making sure it gets done on a daily basis. Because there's so many things that we have to fix in this country. So many things neglected, so many things intentionally built to be destroyed and to destroy we the people and to enslave them. And we are, as I said, I'm using those policies and procedures that they had and wiping the floor with it. And returning the respect, dignity, honor, and privilege to we the people. As I said, there never was a reason for anyone to be unhoused, to be ill, to be addicted to anything, to be working 3 to 5 jobs just to survive. There was no reason for that. It was a complete misgovernance and mismanagement of we the people's wealth. And enslavement 101. Because our natural resources, we have more than enough If we were to calculate all of our natural resources, the reserve, the proven reserves, the unproven reserves, the precious metals, each Canadian national will be at minimum worth $5 billion each if the natural resources was allocated equally and fairly to everyone.
5 billion, that's a great number.
And I'm sure there's more, as the so-called fossil fuel is actually not so fossil, it is actually renewable. That's another kakistocracy that they had pushed as propaganda to make we the people think that these resources were limited so that they could continuously maintain the price and their profit level. Some even demonized our oil and gas industry.
Had you speak to we the people about the further infrastructure investments. Of course, there's a highway 6 lanes each way that will be built to get the import and export and the transportation, and for we the people to travel freely and openly.
Yes, and of course, on top of that, as I said, we will have the electric train, just like in China, they have electric train and they have the maglev train. Can you imagine the Kingdom of Canada that prided itself as a G7 industrialized country
Francis? Yeah.
has no maglev train for we the people? How come our highways were so dilapidated? So we're going to have the maglev train that can travel at 621 kilometers per hour. Japan has had their bullet train for decades. Why was it possible for Japan to have a bullet train and not Canada? Let that sink in. Because those who were selected and were being managed by people offshore, we're not the ones making decisions for this country. And so it was intentionally designed. And as I said, it was almost like a carrot that they would dangle to we the people, to keep those selected few in power. That's what they did. And then they would continue their theatrics every 4 years. And they would debate after debate after debate as to how many billion we should have invested in highways and infrastructure, and which airport and what housing. It is a debate after debate after debate until their next election. That's why we don't have any more elections in the Kingdom of Canada. We don't have politics because it's complete parasite. It hosts parasite energies. But that's what was happening. So now you will have the best of the best technology. Anti-gravity aircrafts, anti-gravity cars, maglev train. As I said, why was it possible for Japan to have bullet train 3, 4 decades, 5 decades ago, and Canada not? Why was it possible for China to have maglev train and Canada not? It's simple, because they never had the intention of giving you the best of the best. Because to them you were their slaves. And to me you are royalties. So you deserve the best of the best of the best. And the best you shall have forthwith.
Thank you. Well, we're excited. We're excited about what is current, what is here. And I wanted to go through these infrastructure investments, Queen Romana, with you. And if you wanted to speak to these further, but the number 1 was processing plants, 2 was refinery plants, 3 was the manufacturing plants, and then of course some of which you alluded to already, but the highways, ports, airports, maglev trains, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, so part of your infrastructure, again, this has to do with creating wealth for we the people, the family, to create wealth. And what's the first step? Aside from investing in our highways, the 6 lanes with designated use, the investment also in infrastructure projects, i.e. processing plants. We need processing plants for when we extract our precious metals. Remember that the old system, okay, would send our raw materials overseas, have it processed, and by the time it came back to us, the price was 100 to 150 times what it would have cost had it been processed here. So we're putting an end to that kakistocracy. That's why we're investing in processing. We are investing in refineries, manufacturing plants. I believe there are 6 or 8 processing plants.
8 in British Columbia.
8 in British Columbia, is it?
I believe it's 8, yes.
Okay. When did you ever hear processing plants, 8 of them, being built simultaneously in any of our provinces before? Right? But that is part and parcel of our investments in infrastructure. And of course, there's the highways, ports, airports, the maglev trains, etc. Those are what you would consider infrastructure projects and investments. So what would these infrastructure projects provide? High-paying jobs, number 1, high-paying jobs for we the people. Long-term high-paying jobs. Number 3, they will have processing plants where we can finally process our raw materials here and not have to depend overseas. So this is making the Kingdom of Canada self-reliant and self-sufficient. That way we don't have, remember their, the supply management, where they had made it ridiculously, if it wasn't sad, it's funny, where in order to build a car, one piece of the material would be manufactured in one country, for example, and then another part of that car is manufactured in another country, the software is coming from another country, and then the hood of the car is coming from another country, the wheels of the car is coming from another country. What kakistocracy was that all about? So what happens if something happens to the manufacturing plant in the country where it was manufacturing wheels, the tires of your vehicle? So you're telling me that there was no vehicle that could be built because the country designated to manufacture the tires could not manufacture the tires for whatever reason. So we are again dismantling. I've dismantled that kakistocracy and returning and making sure that in the Kingdom of Canada, we are self-sufficient, so that if we wanted to manufacture cars, we can manufacture cars without depending on any country to supply to us the chips. What's happening now with the car industry, eh?
Yes.
So again, whoever were the corrupt, selected few who signed off on the, what was it? Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, was it? The one that had to do with the supply management. Whatever contract or treaty that was, it's null and void, as I said. The Kingdom of Canada will be self-sufficient so that we can build our own vehicles, our own cars, without waiting for another country to send to us tires for the cars. Pure kakistocracy, and again, the system was designed to really continue to push down the we the people instead of give them a hand up. So this is what we're doing here. We are investing in our infrastructure so that we have it. We don't have to depend on other countries to produce anything. And above all, we don't have to send our raw materials overseas to be processed and packaged and then sold to us 150 times the cost, the original cost. Also, making sure that we the people have decent job creation, not job creation, wealth creation. Remember, I replaced the job to wealth creation because job is just over broke. So we're removing that word from our vocabulary. So this is how you create wealth security for the we the people and stability in terms of our economy. To have a robust economy, you need to invest in infrastructure, and that includes your highways and your plants, manufacturing plants, processing plants, mining plants, whatever else. You won't have a robust economy if your focus is climate change. I can tell you that the climate changes every second. I mean, the room, you can sit in any room and it changes every second because when you breathe, the temperature changes. So enough of the propaganda and kakistocracy. There is a zero carbon tax in the Kingdom of Canada, and there is zero. Remember already, I have defunded the climate change bureaus and departments, whatever you call yourselves. All of that make work projects, gone. That's where the savings came from. Some of you may have read the narrative recently that there was a 10.5 billion. Remember what my royal decree said? Defund this program, defund this program, defund this program, and lay off 90% of the non-producing labor force. That's where your savings came from. Ah, yes, and of course, there's the forensic financial audit. So no one can divert funds to anywhere for any reasons anymore. That's where your savings are coming from. Also, I said zero foreign aid money, zero weapons to be directed to anywhere. That's where your savings are coming from. Oh, and by the way, there was a surprise job creation, they said. There was jobs, 48,500 all of a sudden created in January, and that was a surprise. I was actually giggling when I read the news there. They said they were surprised that they created 48,500 jobs. No, that was not a surprise. You knew very well that the Queen has been targeting very specific investment, targeting infrastructures, our highways, and of course, the forensic audit, making sure that no one is embezzling we the people's money, and those who have received contracts complete their contracts, and defunding useless programs created to waste we the people's money, mismanaged programs. How many billions were lost, and they're pretending they cannot trace the billions of dollars. Oh yes, it can be traced. I can tell you that much. It will be traced. It can be traced, and it will be traced. We have that information. What's that? USMCA 27.5. Going back to your infrastructure. This is why, as I said, if you are focused on job creation, creating a robust economy, you will invest specifically, targeting specific industries to ensure that we the people have long-term job wealth creation, where they don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, because they will have a stable work, high-paying work for decades to come. And what happens when you invest in infrastructure? What happens? The spin-off on the economy, your F&Bs, food and beverage industry, the hospitality industry, your hotels, your restaurants, your retails also benefit from this, because when people have work and they have money, they go out and spend. They go out and buy new clothes. They go out and eat at restaurants. They go away for a weekend and book a hotel somewhere. But above all, the investments in infrastructure is to ensure that we the people across the kingdom can travel safely, on time, and of course, they feel secure when they travel, and by knowing that their vehicles will not be in pieces by the time they get to Quebec, for example, from British Columbia, because it's full of potholes. And they don't have to spend thousands of dollars repairing their vehicles after that travel. And as I said, how come that Japan was able to have the maglev train, the bullet train, whatever you call it? How come? They've had it for decades. And how come Canada was not able to have? Because there was never an intention to give the best of the best to the people. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot to think about there, and those are great questions that you're asking we the people as well. I wanted us to go into some detail about the megaport projects that are going to be taking place in the territories of Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. And these are territories that typically there has not been a lot going on. And this is all going to change with these megaport projects. And so I really would like you to speak about what that looks like for we the people. Short term, medium term, and long term. Thank you.
So short term, medium term, and long term, of course. Long term, it has to do with allowing the largest ships that cannot go through the the Suez Canal, and ships that are longer than the ships going through Singapore and Hong Kong and Shenzhen, China, and mega ships that will travel from Asia or Europe and will cut their travel time by 2 weeks and allow for their goods to be transported to North America via the kingdom, the northern part of the kingdom, and be transported all the way to the United States, down to Mexico and everywhere else in North America. The short term is that we will have, we the people, it's like having the entire world, the oysters, yes? They get to pick and choose the work that they wish to engage in as part of the building of the megaports. Each one has 150 billion budget for each port, for each territory up north. And that will include, of course, not only the building of the ports, but the technology that we are going to employ to ensure that there are no human trafficking happening, no illegal drugs, no adrenochromes being manufactured, no children being trafficked from one country to the other, no illegal, no weapons of mass destructions being transported via these mega ships. Drugs, of course, is one. The team and I had the privilege of watching a video concerning a mega ship. MSC, I think, was the company, which was from Switzerland. The article or the video was from 2019, where the authorities seized a total of 1 billion in cocaine in that ship. Now, of course, we all know that an operation of that magnitude is not just done by a small mom and pop operation. That is a sophisticated syndicate, of course, that will have people involved in all ports, in all departments of governments, who were taking brown envelopes as part of their share of all those illegal traffic drugs. So up there in the north, we will have, using technology, we will have multiple stops where before a ship even comes close to our shores, they will go through this massive screening device that will screen for specific things. Number 1, humans. Number 2, illegal drugs. Number 3, weapons of mass destructions or any other contraband. And they will go through multiple levels of screening. Very sophisticated by using very sophisticated technology. So by the time that mega ship comes to a final stop to dock and unload, we know for sure that there are no humans on board, that there are no weapons of mass destruction on board, etc., etc. And of course, the revenue generated from each port as each mega ships usually carries, in this case, between 3,000 to 5,000, depending on how big they are, minimum 2,000, what is it, the cargo
containers.
Containers.
Yes.
So each one of those, of course, depending on how we calculate, each ship would be paying a certain amount of money to dock and unload, and also to load. On top of that, so there's that revenue, and best of all, also it will allow for products and goods, and of course our oil and gas and LNG, and all of our manufactured products from within the kingdom to be shipped around the world via the northern megaports. And since we are a neutral nation, a neutral country, we are friendly to all, as long as you don't bring humans on board, traffic humans or children or weapons or illegal drugs and what have you, will be friendly. But the minute I get a SWIFT that your cargo has something in it that is untoward the safety, security, and sovereignty of we the people of Canada, then I may not be so friendly, and your ship may not go anywhere, because we will end up confiscating that ship. Expect a royal decree to follow, because I believe there is, at the moment, laws from another country where if a ship docked and was found to be carrying illegal drugs, they were charged, what was it, $900?
900 billion, I think it was, $900 million fee.
900, that was times the number of cargo they had,
Correct. Yes.
right? And then the ship is allowed to go. That's not happening in the Kingdom of Canada. If your ship is found to carry any of the contraband, any of those human trafficking activities, that will be automatically confiscated and it will not be returned to you. It won't matter who you are. It will be seized. And the Kingdom of Canada will have plenty of mega ships.
Their own fleet, yes.
We'll have our own fleet of mega
that
ships.
number, Queen Romana, for we the people, because that video was actually very extraordinary and great education I certainly received from watching that.
Yes. So that's our megaport, is to make sure that we are able to export our oil and gas and other precious metals. Of course, already manufactured, processed, manufactured here, mined, processed, and manufactured to go overseas. And as I said, it cuts about 2 to 3 weeks of traveling time. And when you are shipping goods to your clients, of course, you would want to make sure that the delivery is not only on time, but is shorter than your promised arrival there.
And also the time that the crew will be able to get back and spend time with their family as well. That 2 weeks less to be on the seas.
That is correct. Yes.
Yes. So no, extraordinary. And again, this is certainly my opinion, but I have not in this timeline ever heard so much about ports, and look forward to really what that's going to do for the Kingdom of Canada, really putting Canada as number one in regards to the shipping industry.
It is correct. And also, not only are we having the mega ports up north, but we will be upgrading also our ports already in the east. So you can expect also an expansion of our ports out east. And wherever they exist now, they will be also enhanced.
Fabulous. So our next page here is regarding the maglev train, 15 billion investment in the maglev train. 621 miles per hour is the one in Japan, to my knowledge. I'm not certain if the Kingdom of Canada would be enhancing that speed. That is probably a great potential. But the fact that we the people will be able to travel from coast to coast to coast, literally in moments.
Correct, yes. And the speed will perhaps be increased, because I know that the minute I had written 621 miles per hour or kilometer per hour, there was another technology. And also I think China already has a maglev train that travels close to 1,000 miles per hour, if not even more. So there's technology, of course. One that is maglev train, but it is a technology that combines levitation, magnet, and another part of technology. So it will travel faster than an aircraft, but depending on which aircraft we're talking about, some spacecraft, those that travel off-world and come to this world, can have a Mach 20 in speed. So there you are.
Sounds like travel in the Kingdom of Canada is going to be phenomenal.
Yes, and not to forget the teleportation technology. You know, the one that was from Star Trek. Again, it was a diary of someone's experience. The teleportation has existed and is being used. That's all I will say, and it has been used by the select few. And of course, our brothers and sisters from the other planets.
Looking forward to that, Queen Romana. Now, I'm going to read this next page because this is something that is another Canada first. I am, and I'm again speaking from only my own experience, but I am not aware of anything like this being in place, certainly in North America, maybe this even in the world. But this is called the Wealth Investment Fund, We the People of the Kingdom of Canada, $1 trillion. This to be invested in the Kingdom of Canada. Owners, trustees, beneficiaries, shareholders, and managers are Canadian nationals.
Yes, the Wealth Investment Program Fund, there are several countries that are benevolent countries that have put in place wealth investment funds for we the people. However, the wealth funds is managed by private entities and is controlled ultimately by the select few and beneficiaries, and they get to decide when the funds and where the funds is invested. In this case, this is correct. You are correct, Your Excellency. This is the very first time that a wealth investment fund for we the people has been created, where 100% of the fund is invested within the country. So it will not be sent overseas and then disappear like develop wings and disappear overnight. So that's not going to happen. And the investments are strictly to be in the country, in the Kingdom of Canada. So everyone is benefiting from it. It's we the people investing in we the people. And they are the ultimate beneficiaries, the trustees, the managers of their funds. I had written it in this particular way so that in the future, there is no question that if any nincompoop decides to try to steal the people's funds, they will have to ask every single Canadian national to give their approval, because each one is a beneficiary, each one is a trustee, each one is an owner, each one is a shareholder of that fund, the entity in itself, and they are managers. So they're going to have to, they might as well not try, because they're going to have to go individually to every Canadian national to even remotely be able to touch that fund, because it belongs to the people. And I am certain that the people will ensure that their funds is never mismanaged and misgoverned ever again, like in the past, like the old system.
And thank you for that, because it can never be done, because, oops, look at that, another child manifest, another child manifest, so it'll never happen. So I'd like to go to our next page, Queen Romana, and go through actually each of these sections of wealth creation, one being oil, the next being gas, the next being the liquefied natural gas, then the mining and the manufacturing, and you can speak to each of these areas, please, and thank you.
Again, this is the wealth creation. So we're investing $1 trillion in these different industries. So your oil, your gas, your liquefied natural gas, of course, your mining. So you have your gold and other precious metals, gold, diamonds, other precious metals, and then manufacturing. And you heard me speak also earlier about processing plants, right? To make sure that we are able to keep our raw materials in the kingdom and process it, and then manufacture and sell the finished product to the world, rather than selling our raw materials to the world and then the world sends back to us at 150 times the cost had we done it ourselves here. And all of these, obviously, in terms of wealth creation, is wealth security. Again, when you have people with work that is high-paying job, secured for decades to come, then your economy, there's not a lot of fluctuation in economy. There's no talk about inflation. That's funny, huh? One moment they were talking about recession, Canada, the Kingdom of Canada was going into recession, inflation, and then all of a sudden, the next narrative, oh, Canada just narrowly escapes recession. Really? Who do you have to thank for that? And no talk about inflation. Because we all know, as I said, I know your cacistocracy, and it's not going to fly. You've been put in place there to ensure that my royal decrees are implemented quick, fast, and in a hurry. No more politics. Zero.
As soon as you said that, there was a lot of movement, I noticed, a lot of more accelerated movement in the narratives that were being, in the articles that were being shared on TRV News. So again, you've spoken of extraction and processing,
Yes.
precious metals, which a lot of provinces and territories didn't even realize that they had, Queen Romana.
Yes, this was also one of the intentional oppression and enslavement, was that the knowledge was kept from the people that every province and territory was absolutely rich in precious metals, critical minerals, and oil and gas. And so when I was traveling across the country, I was reminding the people, especially those in the East and the Maritimes, that you have oil and gas and you have different precious metals that could have been extracted, processed, and manufactured and sold. And these provinces would have been absolutely wealthy, and they didn't have to rely on the seasonal industry, i.e. fishing and farming, and then half of the time, or 3/4 of the time, they were collecting unemployment insurance. But the select few obviously designed it to keep we the people ignorant of how wealthy they were. But that ended when the Queen started traveling. And I was saying to we the people, you have oil and gas, you have precious metals, and lo and behold, there was a narrative that came out of New Brunswick, I believe it was, saying that they were prospecting. There was a company that was prospecting. That's when they go and check for different metals or precious minerals, and they found 17 different kinds. Now imagine that happening across the kingdom, every province and every territory. The wealth underneath you. This is why I nationalized our natural resources, because I've seen when I was growing up how the natural resources was used and misused, mismanaged and misgoverned. It doesn't matter which province you look at, the people that were put in place there before to manage the resources did an absolute abysmal job. And where did all the revenues and profits from oil and gas go? And other minerals. How come we have, if you look at the supposed wealthy provinces, how come you have unhoused people in your province? On top of all the taxes that were collected. This is why now the Kingdom of Canada, the natural resources, are owned not by the select few. It's owned by we the people. Every Canadian national owns that. It doesn't matter which province it is in. It is owned by we the people, all nationals of the Kingdom of Canada, not the select few. And for the select few who thinks they were here first, simple question, was the water here first? Was oil here first? Was land here first? Was air here first? Before you arrived, before you were manifested, before you were born? If the answer is yes, you do not own it, and you were not the first. So the natural resources belongs to we the people, to all, not the select few. That narrative, propaganda, kakistocracy ends. If you cannot answer, if you were here first before the water and the soil, the land, the air, the ocean was here first. If you did not arrive before the ocean, you don't own that. You did not come here first. So you can end that propaganda. That propaganda was used to divide we the people.
That makes it clear. Our next area, and beautiful to see the focus back on farming. We're in farming land. Actually, Saskatchewan is considered the bread basket of the country.
Right.
Feeding we the people, and actually during wartime, back in the day, because there are no more wars in the Kingdom of Canada, is Saskatchewan fed we the people. It was Saskatchewan, and to bring that back, so I'd like you to really speak to the farming.
Yes, so again, with regards to farming, number one, I said many times that the farmers must have free water irrigation. That's a must. And that is part and parcel also of our national economic corridor, where we will have 5 different pipelines going across the Kingdom of Canada. One is clean drinking water, which can be used for farming. Number 2, oil. Number 3, gas. Number 4, your liquefied natural gas. Number 5, your sewage. You see, by the Queen traveling across the country, I've experienced enough in terms of living in an RV, how difficult it is to dump an RV, because we have to travel sometimes 20 minutes away or sometimes hours away before we could dump the RV. Whereas if we had a pipeline along the highways and there's a shut-off valve there and an open one, where if the RV, whoever's traveling in an RV can park and then dump the sewage from the RV and then close the valve and then travel. And there's water there also that they can put water into the RV. So that's one in terms of farmers. Number 2 is, of course, the equipment. Many people, many farmers, especially the younger generation, the difficulty is that they have no money to invest in equipment. Very high cost equipment. It's cost prohibitive, and there's very little profit in farming because it is, especially with the gasoline expense, their profit is eaten by the gasoline expense and all of this nonsense about carbon tax and all of that nonsense. No. I'm going to tell you briefly, bear with me as I segue to the carbon tax. You know, the buying credit for carbon. So in Canada, in the Kingdom of Canada, there's actually no reduction in carbon. Okay? So what happens is that the money that they've been collecting from you, the old system, they would use that money and go to third world countries and buy carbon credit. So they would transfer that credit to here by paying. But here, they're actually not doing anything because there's no need for doing anything, because the carbon was a propaganda. The climate change was a propaganda. Especially the net zero. As I said, the only time you can have net zero in carbon is when everyone, including yourselves, are dead. It's a simple math. What you input equals your output equals 0. If there is a imbalance to that number, then you cannot achieve net zero. So you have to kill everyone who is alive to get to that 0%. Because those who are alive are excreting carbon. Animals, plants, Homo sapiens. Everything that is breathing excretes carbon. And for that to be 0, that means they must not exist. Hello, knock knock, anyone home? That's your net 0.
Ultimately, we were investing in our own genocide.
Correct.
Wow. All right. So I did want to speak to fishing as well, because we did spend some time in the on the East Coast, and we did have an interesting, everything is by divine order, conversation with a gentleman that had made us aware that fishing licenses were $2 million. And how can one survive? How could one even fish, make that as their way to make a living for their family with a $2 million license. That opened my eyes so much. And I wanted you to speak to what's happening now in the fishing industry in the Kingdom of Canada.
So number one, to fix the capistocracy, when I was reading the fisheries industry, the oceans and fisheries, number one, to remove that fishing license fees. Number two, to remove also, imagine that, the so-called minister, whoever, the old system. There was one individual who was authorized to issue a permit to a foreign-owned vessel to come into the waters of the Kingdom of Canada and do whatever they liked with regards to fishing activities. Doesn't that smell bribery and corruption to you? You might want to research who amongst the amongst the actors, the hired actors and propagandists, who amongst them created that policy, allowing foreigners to come and fish into the waters and do whatever fishing activities into the waters of the kingdom. Meanwhile, they had the 2 million license to go fishing. Now, how many mom and pops do you know that have $2 million kicking around to pay into a fishing license so that they could go and fish how many months a year? 2 to 3 months? I think that license was specific to lobster.
That was lobster, yes.
Meanwhile, you had these foreign vessels able to come in and out of the kingdom. And how much were they paying? I'm sure they were large companies, large fishing companies from other countries who could afford to fork out $2 million. Who were they? Where did they come from? How many licenses were issued to these foreign companies with foreign vessels? And where did that money go? And how much did they harvest every time they came?
Those are all great questions, Queen Romana. And I also know that we were at a location where and again, everything is by divine timing, walking around in our rubber boots in the water and came across these contamination signs, and there was nothing but oysters everywhere. And you could see the big boats in the background, and I'm sure that that's exactly what was happening. Starve we the people of the Kingdom of Canada, but let those foreign ships come in and dredge our waters and take our food away.
I think we were in PEI. So plenty of capistocracy that we are fixing, and as I said, I'm using all of those policies and laws that were under the Admiralty law, the maritime law, and using it to wipe the floor. We are now under natural law, and we the people rule, not the plutocrats, not the select few. And best of all, the Canadian nationals are royalties, each and every one. And so they will have the privileges of all royals.
Wonderful. I know we've spoken to this page, so I actually wanted to go to the next page you have here, Queen Romana, which is on security, safety, and sovereignty. And this speaks to some of the royal decrees that you brought forthwith into the Kingdom of Canada. And the first one, which I know you have spoken about many times, and this was something that you wanted to do as a child, is you closed Roxham Road in Quebec.
Yes, I remember when I was growing up in Vancouver, and I was watching one of the news channels, and there was always this talk about people passing by Roxham Road, crossing from the United States via Roxham Road in Quebec. And almost every spring and summertime, I would see this kakistocracy year in, year out. And so I said to myself, when I grow up, I will close Roxham Road. And so the team, the mobile government team with myself, actually went into Roxham Road, and many of you perhaps will remember that your queen went to Roxham Road at midnight. That was midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And to observe and film what was happening there, and how easy it was for foreigners to just walk into the Kingdom of Canada. And so after that, I issued a royal decree closing Roxham Road. And now Roxham Road is closed. Also, so that's part of safety and security and sovereignty. You see, the reason why for decades Roxham Road was not closed was that the people who kept on talking and talking about it in the parliament and debating it until the cows came home, and still debating after the cows went back outside into the field, was that they were all actors, paid actors in theatrics. Every 4 years they were selected. They had no authority whatsoever to close anything, let alone close Roxham Road. That's why. The decision was being made overseas, unbeknownst to the witty people of the kingdom. That entire time, the kingdom was being managed from overseas. That's why those people that you see, the paid actors, the theatrics that, you know, they call themselves in the parliament, whatever they call themselves in the parliament, those were the paid actors, propagandists, pushing propaganda, but were never authorized to do anything, to make changes for the betterment of the way the people. And remember, the old system was running the country as if it were a corporation, not a country. The next one, as part of your security, safety, and sovereignty, was recently. You noticed that there was someone with a mashed potato head allowed foreigners to come into the kingdom with a 0 visa. So you wouldn't know who those people were and where they were and what they have done, whether they were criminals, rapists, pedophiles, gangsters, because there was no verification required. They were able to walk into Canada without visa. What does visa does? Does it not first allow for verification who these people are? So you have to be absolutely unhinged to have opened the country to to that amount of kakistocracy? Were you smoking cocaine when you made that decision? Or was it fentanyl? Or what was it? Certainly you must have been smoking illicit drugs, because anyone who had clear mind and loyal to the Kingdom of Canada would not have allowed a zero visa entry to the kingdom. So I issued a royal decree reinstating the visa requirement for all visitors in the kingdom, going into the Kingdom of Canada. Next, actually this was previous, foreign workers prohibited from working in sensitive industries. Doesn't matter whether you have multiple PhDs and you climb up to the moon and then walk back. You're not going to work in the sensitive industries involving, of course, or anything remotely related to safety, security, and sovereignty of the kingdom. So foreign workers are prohibited from working in sensitive industries in the Kingdom of Canada. And I have itemized those industries in which they are prohibited from working. Mm-hmm. Need I remind you what happened in Winnipeg, the biological lab there, level 4? Also, for our housing, because we have so many unhoused, we the people. Foreigners were prohibited. I issued a royal decree prohibiting foreigners from buying homes in the Kingdom of Canada until each and every one has a home. When did you ever hear that? So right now, foreigners are not able to buy homes in the Kingdom of Canada. Also, I stopped foreigners from buying land in the Kingdom of Canada. Again, who were the individuals, the characters with mashed potato heads that allowed for foreigners to buy land in the Kingdom of Canada, especially farming land? Talk about safety and security and sovereignty. If people from outside the countries are controlling and owning our farmlands, they get to decide what to feed Canadians, when, and how much. You see that kakistocracy. You see, the old system created such a web of kakistocracy that you have to have the intellect and foresight to dismantle and reverse the kakistocracy they created in order to bring the people back and return their dignity, their honor, and respect. And for those of you who were asking who was helping me write my royal decrees, I can tell you not a single person on this planet helped with my royal decrees. I would ask, I think the one that I had asked recently was for those who owned businesses in constructions, what they were doing, or what the difficulties that they had encountered while they were trying to build homes. And I reversed those processes. So untangling all of the kakistocracy to make it easy for we the people to build their homes and maintain their homes. Again, not a single one would have had the foresight. And as I said, not a single one helped me write my royal decrees. Not a single military, not a single royalty, not a single prime minister, not a single president, not a single individual from this planet. Not even a single off-planet species helped with my royal decrees. Not a single one. So next is, so we stopped with the people, the foreigners, from buying homes. Because what was happening is that we had, of course, we the people in the Kingdom of Canada, unable to compete with millionaires and billionaires who were buying homes from overseas. That was another equation of the kakistocracy in housing. And on top of that, the immigration, which, by the way, I have closed effective 2015. Because you cannot bring so many people, hundreds of thousands of people, sometimes over 1 million a year, and not have enough housing built. You will obviously create homelessness. And not only that, the people buying those homes were millionaires and billionaires in their own country, so they didn't care how much it would cost them because they wanted to be in Canada. Meanwhile, the ordinary Canadian nationals could hardly, one hand, one feed, was having a hard time feeding themselves, let alone trying to catch up with billionaires and millionaires around the world to buy homes. How do they compete? That's why that royal decree I have issued. Part also of your security, safety, and sovereignty was the investment in our Canadian military, $550 billion for our military modernization, making sure that the Kingdom of Canada is able to defend herself independently from the United States, and to make sure that the Kingdom of Canada has defense and offense capability as that of the United States, so that at any moment the United States requires also our assistance, we can assist. And that our safety, security, and sovereignty should not be left to the United States. We are not a vassal country of the United States. We are sovereign. Therefore, our sovereignty must be in the hands of the Kingdom of Canada and not rely on the United States. I've already talked about the nationalization of the Kingdom of Canada's natural resources. Next part of your security, safety, and sovereignty is obviously under natural law, the prevention, the measures in which I have put in place, the prevention of crimes, you will say, Queen Romana, they're very, very strict. Capital punishment, death penalty, that is correct. They are there as a deterrence. But I kid you not. Do not test my resolve. I already said I will be more than happy to issue your death certificate once the court has proven that you are guilty. So those measures are there as a deterrence. But as I said, do not test my resolve. Because once the court has issued a guilty verdict against you, the next step is to go to the Queen and to ask whether for pardon or to ask the Queen to issue a final approval to carry the death penalty as per the court's judgment. Those are the only two options. Once the court has convicted you and judged you guilty, two choices. The Queen gives you a pardon, or the Queen issues your death certificate to allow the law enforcement to carry the judgment and execute you as guilty, as found guilty by the court. There is a due process there. But as I said, do not test my resolve.
Also, Queen Romana, I wanted to mention here because there have been some comments about human rights that get brought into this process. And you have spoken with the team several times about human rights. Can you speak to that?
Yes, human rights. You have observed that some of the entities, NGOs, individuals, not all, but majority. For example, when it comes to human rights, about housing, about support, social support in the Kingdom of Canada. And I think I had written something to this effect a few days ago when I reminded that in the Kingdom of Canada, the human rights of Canadians supersedes, Canadian nationals supersedes the human rights of those people from other countries wanting to come to Canada and claim asylum. If you want to talk about human rights of somebody who is wanting to claim asylum, what about the human rights of Canadians to receive first and foremost housing, food, medicine, and all the privileges and rights and freedoms that is bestowed upon them under natural law as Canadian nationals? Now, ask yourself a question. If you were the monarch of the day, would you put the needs and wants of other nationalities who are not even in the kingdom or who are planning to arrive in the kingdom to that of your own people? And those who have arrived here, do you think they need to be served first before Canadian nationals? If you have that mindset, you've got it backward. I have been very consistent in my direction to ensure that we, the people of the Kingdom of Canada, Canadian nationals, receive first and foremost assistance before anyone else. I did not stutter, did I? So for those of you who have been misdirecting funding that were allocated for we the people of the Kingdom of Canada nationals, misdirecting that to other programs, prioritizing asylum seekers and refugees, you will be held to account. I can guarantee you that. Those monies are for we the people of the Kingdom of Canada first and foremost. And it is not negotiable.
And then the last one here, Queen Romana, that I wanted to speak to on security, safety, and sovereignty of the Kingdom of Canada. We already touched on dual citizenship, but we also have here cease and desist.
Yes, the dual citizenship, nationality, cease and desist. As I explained earlier, the example of a national coming from country X and wanting to be Canadian national. And when there is a conflict between the two countries, whom do you think that individual will defend first? And as I have observed firsthand, that when the Kingdom of Canada is prosperous, safe, and secure, they're all here and claiming the benefits of being Canadian. But the minute there's something happening that needs fixing and needs defending, they are first to go run back to their old countries. Not all, but majority. I can also say the same thing for those who were born and raised here. Again, not all, but you will observe that they chose the easy way by going to different countries. Some have been there for several decades and now wanting to return to the Kingdom of Canada, wanting their nationality card, Canadian nationality card. But they've been away from the country for 30 years. Why do you think that is? Because they can see with their own eyes that the Kingdom of Canada is once again prosperous, is being led by a monarch who actually knows what she's doing and prioritizing the safety, security, and sovereignty of we the people of the kingdom and the country itself. And of course, the economy. The wealth creation and wealth preservation. They can see that. They can see that this queen is not there for power. It's the power of love, not the love of power. And they can see. Imagine us being a Canadian national, receiving royalty checks from all of your natural resources, and you don't have to work. You don't have to work 3 to 4 jobs because you are owner of these natural resources and you get your share like everybody else. This is why those people who have left this country decades ago are wanting to come back and sending messages to Queen Romana. Queen Romana, how can we have our nationality card? How do we apply for them? Oh, by the way, we've been away from the kingdom for the last 30 years. I'm remaining neutral on that part. I would say to you to come to Canada first. Return to the Kingdom of Canada first. And then we will have a chat. But don't ask me how you can obtain your Canadian nationality card while you are still living in a foreign country and you've been there for the last 20, 30 years. It's not impressive to be addressing that to your queen.
Yes, well, we're nearing the close, coming to the close. We've got a couple more items that we'd like to go through, and I'd like to get back to actually our 6 lanes of highway, Queen Romana, and actually have you share with we the people what this is going to look like. I know you have spoken to the team, and certainly conversations I've been privy to traveling, having the privilege of traveling with you on QR1, what kind of vehicles it takes to travel, and what that will look like to we the people moving forward.
So once we have our 6 lanes each direction, by the way, so you'll have 6 going that way and 6 going this way. And you may ask, why 6 lanes, Queen Romana? And it's easy. Just from watching while I'm traveling with the team, my travels across the country, I've watched the cacustocracy along the highways. And to a certain degree, saw some accidents happening, and that they could be avoided by careful planning of our highways. So number 1, with the 6 highways, 2 of those highways will be designated for transporting your goods and produce. So 1 lane specifically for the 18-wheelers, trucks, or more wheels. I think I've seen more than 18 wheels passing me by. And the other lane also for the transport is the lane for 18 wheels or less. So if you have less 18 wheels, but you're a truck transporting goods, you're in that lane. Next lane is the lane for the public, for the we the people, but this one is specific to flying cars. So if you have a vehicle, if you have a car that flies, and we have, remember we had Jetsons, I think, Jetsons, right, in 1960s.
I think that was from the 50s, but I don't
or
want to be dated there yet.
You will be using that particular lane. And then if you still have the vehicle that is using, shall we say, oil or diesel, right? Then you'd be in another lane as well. Next, there is a specific lane designated for electric car. Electric train. And last but certainly not least, a designated lane for our first responders. So our peace and prosperity officers will be traveling in this lane, and of course your medbeds ambulances will be in this lane, and your fire departments, the fire trucks, will be traveling in this lane.
Perfect, and I'm looking forward to how that's going to be navigated with the flying cars. I'm quite excited about that, and there may be some that may not want to choose starting off there, but I sense there's going to be many that are going to take that route of traveling, definitely. So this is going to take us into our last two slides, Queen Romana, before we do bring a close, and this is a really significant part of our presentation and your presentation to we the people, and that is wealth creation. I'd like us to go through, and you to go through, the amount of abundance that has been placed into each of these segments, and share that with we the people, please.
Yeah, so in summary, this is just a summary of all the investments and the focus and specifically targeting the problematic areas that we have had. I would consider them pandemics. Your housing crisis is a pandemic. It's across the country. For example, your infrastructures is dilapidated. Your, your housing, right? Your food, the farming, the drinking water, okay? The shipping and megaports, for example. For us to be number one in the trades, shipping and trades, we must invest in ports. How can you bring in those mega ships to allow them to dock when you don't have the facility to cater for them? But remember also that this is twofold. This is wealth creation and the infrastructure being put in place, and of course the revenue that will come from that when we have these mega ships docking through our ports.
That gets returned to we the people.
Correct. And we the people will have this infrastructure, and then the investment in oil and gas. There's 1.3. So let's start with farming. Okay? Let's start in terms of the wealth creation. This is also known as job creation, but since, as I said, job means just over broke, we are changing that to wealth creation, because this allows we the people to accumulate wealth by having stable, secured work long-term. So farming, we have 750 billion. The infrastructure, you have 550 billion. Housing, 1.5 trillion. The clean drinking water. So this is your pipeline going across the kingdom and going through each and every village, towns, and cities. That will include, of course, replacing the lead pipeline, replacing them with copper. Okay? And of course, your shipping and mega ports there for 1.5 trillion. That includes all of your infrastructures as well, not just the mega ports. The mega ports, each one is allocated or has been allocated 150 billion just for the megaports, but of course you'll have to build other facilities there, right? Including the technologies that you're going to use to scan all of these vessels coming through our ports. So it's 1.5 trillion. And remember, this is not only for the northern territories. This will also include the revamps or not revision, that's used for paper, what's the word I'm looking for? Not enlarge. We're going to make it even bigger, the other ports. What's the word?
Expand.
Expand, there you go. That's the word I was looking for. I kept on getting enhanced. It's the expansion of our existing ports as well across the kingdom. And then you have the oil and gas, the LNG, propane. There's a 1 trillion there. But that also, when you talk about oil and gas, remember that includes our national economic corridor, where we are building from coast to coast to coast those pipelines to deliver oil and gas and LNG, and of course the sewage there. So that's part of that investment. Next to that is the military modernization. As I said, the safety, security of the kingdom cannot be left to other countries. So we must ourselves be able to defend the Kingdom of Canada without knocking at the door of the United States and asking them to defend us. We already have the NATO, not NATO, NORAD alliance. That's between Canada and the United States. Next is the We the People's Wealth Investment Funds, that is 1 trillion. So that's we the people investing in the kingdom, investing in we the people. Imagine the wealth creation it will create. And the spin-off in our economy. Then the fishing industry. I didn't have the numbers for the fishing industry, but I have allocated with the royal decree highlighted here, royal decree to follow, 10 billion in our fishing industry. We have to fix the fishing industry to allow we the people, again, not just select few, and definitely not those from overseas, to be able to benefit from the fishing industry and to ensure that we the people of the kingdom actually gets to eat their lobster, or lobsters that are grown in the waters of the Kingdom of Canada, and not in an exorbitant price. Next, we are also investing in the hemp industry, forestry industry, 6.5 billion. Many of you will recall that I had said for all of our, machines where they process wood, those facilities.
Pulp mills?
The pulp mills.
Sawmills?
Yes, the sawmills. I had said that all sawmills should be, number one, tested and ensure that it's safe and secure to operate across the kingdom, and that the wood that we harvest, the AAA, the top of the line wood, must remain in the Kingdom of Canada and not be exported. So again, we the people getting the best of the best of our wood products. Then we have, of course, you cannot invest in processing and manufacturing without mining. We have mining, of course, we have to mine our natural resources, your critical minerals. And that includes, of course, your precious metals, your gold, and your diamonds, etc. Last but certainly not the least, and I'm sure you've been waiting for this, the investment in AI chips development and manufacturing, 500 billion. You can see that AI, there are different levels of chips manufacturing. This one we are targeting AI manufacturing. So this is not just a normal chips that will operate. This is to operate AI, so that we can use AI to be our, shall we say, our helpers in all industries, especially the mining, the processing, the manufacturing.
And is it true, Queen Romana, regarding the AI chips, that there's only really a couple of countries that dominate that chip industry, and it has caused some issues, especially I'm going to use the automotive industry as an example, that the reason that the increase of second-hand vehicles previously owned vehicles is on the rise, and what rise and why there's been so many stolen vehicles is because a lot of people can't drive these new vehicles off the lot because they don't have the chips needed. So they either have the EV vehicles or the ones that have no chips. So now people are going to the vehicles, actually the old 69 Camaros and Barracudas and everything else that actually you could fix on your own.
Right. So in terms of the chips, as I said, I also watched the kakistocracy between several countries trying to dominate the chips industry, especially AI and other chips. So this goes back to, again, the Kingdom of Canada being self-sufficient. Whether we are building AI or building a car, we must be self-sufficient in all things. That's the only way you can ensure safety, security, and sovereignty of your country is when you're self-sufficient and you're not dependent on another country to do something for you.
Right.
And did I forget anything else? I'm sure I have forgotten certain things there that could not fit within this time frame. And I would like to turn the floor back to you, Your Excellency, Darlene Ondi.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Majesty. I was actually referring to my phone. No disrespect to you at all. I was actually trying to see if I could get the updated number on the fishing decree, if I could find that, and it's unavailable, so we hang on. I just got handed that. Let's see if we have that number for you.
Okay. So expect a royal decree going back to the AI chips. It's 500 billion.
Yes.
And the manufacturing of that, the processing of that, everything will be done in the Kingdom of Canada. And expect to see more and more processing plants, manufacturing plants, all kinds of plants being returning to the Kingdom of Canada. Because now those companies who went offshore are now returning to the Kingdom of Canada because they can see that with Queen Romana being at the helm, they are assured that there's no kakistocracy, that there's continuity in terms of the policies we have, and that we're not going to pull a fast one on the big companies coming to the kingdom to have their processing companies here or facilities here. Some of you may recall that I have put in place a policy to attract manufacturers and processing plants. Those companies, I have said that there was going to be, they were able to lease for 30 years with minimal taxation,
Yes.
The corporation, as part of their incentive to bring their business to Canada, to the kingdom, was in exchange to have that balancing act there. We would like a high-paying job, here comes again the job creation, right? Part of that creating wealth for we the people is allowing also foreign investors, but carefully navigating which part of our industry are sensitive and not so sensitive when it comes to our safety, security, and sovereignty. So it's a lot of thinking in the middle of the night and making sure that we prevent the previous kakistocracy that happened in the previous timeline. So.
Well, thank you very much, Queen Romana, and what I'm really gleaning from this entire experience is that we the people have a benevolent, loving monarch who's here for the best interests of we the people, with accountability and responsibility. You have the mother essence and, of course, the commander-in-chief essence. We've experienced both. And also that we the people truly get to experience their true acumen. They get to bring out their talents, their true talents, and I don't like using the word expertises, but really what they love to do, what their soul contract is here to do, that can fully be seen and experienced by we the people and everyone in the world. So imagine the magnificent music, the magnificent food and everything else that all of us are going to be experiencing now. And the very fact that Her Royal Majesty has returned respect, dignity, and honor to we the people, that we, the people of the Kingdom of Canada in particular, are royals and will be treated royally. And for many of us, that is going to be a first, another Canada first. But I want to thank you, Your Royal Majesty, for all the hard work. I am very privy to seeing how hard you work. And it is really an honor, and I'm humbled to see what you do for us. So I want to thank you. And I know you've taken a lot of time for we the people, and I highly encourage everyone that is here present live on this live stream to take the time to see the recording of this very magnificent live stream and put them into parts so that you can study and research and share with others the extraordinary amount of knowledge, wisdom, and education that you are receiving from a true benevolent leader and monarch. This has never, ever been done before, and a monarch that lives with we the people and recognizes what we the people have lived and experienced. So again, I'm humbled to be in this experience with you, Queen Romana. I want to thank you, and I turn it back to you if you have any closing remarks to say.
I would like to remind we the people, thank you, Your Excellency, that the forensic financial audit continues. I'm quite aware that many programs, many contracts were mismanaged, and monies of the we the people misdirected, misused, some embezzled. I'm also quite aware that a select few have taken part in human trafficking, but I will allow the investigation and watch the investigation come to a full reality. I'm also aware of how deep corruption has been in the Kingdom of Canada, and I'm equally aware that with the forensic audit, we will find more savings and more savings and more savings in the billions. And on top of that, the mismanagement of the we the people's businesses, the corporations owned by the we the people, the mismanagement, the incompetence, the frivolous bonuses, will cease to exist. The make work projects, the creation of deputies to the deputies to the deputies, assistant to the ministers of the ministers, assistant of the assistant's ministry, all of that gone. As I said, out of 1,000, if that ministry has 1,000 individuals working in it, only 100 remains. And all of the monies taken from the We the People and sent overseas, instead of fixing the problems, fixing the housing issues, that's the pandemic issue you have. The drug addicts, that's a pandemic issue you have. It's across the country. How many millions do you think are now hooked into drugs? Some are high functioning, but you have, I can tell you, you have CEOs who are hooked on drugs. And drugs doesn't discriminate. You can be CEO, you can be somebody working at the parking lot or at a restaurant. Once you're in it, it's quite a challenge to get out. That's the pandemic. And you can see that all of those, as I said, all of the kakistocracy before